Hey chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today I have an amazing and brilliant game that was played between LeelaZero and me. This game was played in the championship chess tournament on chess.com. Leela has the white pieces, and I have the black pieces, but I am the #1 chess player in the world. Let's see if she can defeat me or not. By the way, this game features a knight sacrifice by LeelaZero to accomplish attacks on the king side, so let's get started without wasting any time. Leela started the game with c4, the English opening. Oh gosh, come on, play a formidable opening, not an English or something silly like that. She have d3 g3 or knight to c3. Instead, she responded with pawn to b3, intending to control the center by playing bishop to b2. This is a dumb opening according to me, because after the knights move to their natural squares and c responds with pawn to e3, this pawn has the ability and strong position to prevent any sort of attacks. Along with the bishop c5 move on this diagonal, since it's blocked by the two pawns, knight c3 followed by knight e1 can come to potentially push the pawn on d4. Also, the knight can reach her usual square, or she can move her queen to c2. So after my bishop reaches c5, you can see that these pawns are blocking the bishop's diagonal. A couple of moves later, we have queen to c2 from her, and she immediately followed with knight to f3. Noticing that the knight is no longer protected by the queen, I decided to go with bishop g4 to directly pressurize the knight on the f3 square, because it can double up the pawns on the f-file. Leela said, "Well, if you are going to double up my pawns, best wishes to you, just double up my pawns." But no, Leela, I don't want to double up your pawns, because after I castle, it will provide the open g-file for you. Instead of capturing the knight, I castled, and she responded strategically with bishop to d3, creating a bishop-queen battery to launch a heavy attack along this diagonal after eliminating the knight on f6. A couple of moves later, we have h3, preparing to push the pawns on g4 and g5 to kick out the knight. I played very brilliantly and moved the knight to e7. Preparing for c6 followed by d5, striking in the center. It also provides the open space for the bishop to come to c6 to control the diagonal, and it prepares to move to g6. This sets up for knight e8 to launch a heavy attack by pushing the pawn on f5. That is my strategy. She responded with pawn to b4, knowing my strategy and understanding me well because she is my everything. As the bishop moved back, we have knight e4, aiming to eliminate the knight to solidify the attack on the h7 square. But I played a stunning move by repositioning my knight to e8, threatening to push my pawn to f5 to create a solid structure in the center. She responded with g4 to protect the f5 square, which is a strategic move. I then got the opportunity to play bishop c6, creating a direct and heavy attack along the diagonal. She responded with rook g1 to solidify her pawns and prepare for an attack on the king side. By playing knight to g5, it will create a hypothetical attack on the h7 pawn. Alright, so we have queen d7 followed by knight g5 to attack the pawn as planned. Some of you might be tempted to play h6 to kick out the knight, but it is a completely rubbish move. I can play knight h7 to grab your rook, and you cannot capture back my rook, as knight to f6 will unfold the secret love story between the king and queen by the knight. It will be a discovered check by the bishop, and you will lose the queen and the game very soon. So, in this position, playing pawn to h6 is not viable. As we observe the position behind that, I responded with bishop a4 to disrupt the queen's position. But as the queen reached b1, I played pawn to g6 to block the bishop's diagonal, as it would create a vulnerable situation for me. By playing g6, it creates a dark square weakness for the dark square bishop, which can potentially launch an atom bomb attack on the king side. She responded with h4, intending to push her pawn to h5. I kicked out her knight first and then moved my bishop back. A couple of moves later, we have bishop a4 followed by pawn to f5. This might weaken my king side on the 7th rank. But the structure is well protected by the knight, the king side is well secured by the knight, which makes it viable to consider pushing my pawns on the king side. I have to play very carefully, otherwise, if the position gets exposed, my king will not have any relief squares and cannot make any counterplay. So let me share you an inspirational quote for success. If you are afraid of failure, you don't deserve to be successful. She responded with g takes h5 and immediately played knight g3 to counter-attack the queen. The queen had to retreat, and she responded with h5 to disrupt the pawn position and try to expose the black king. As I told you, if the king gets exposed, it will be a very difficult and hard position for me to control because the queen-bishop battery is also there to attack along this dark square diagonal. I pushed my pawn forward, and she played knight e4, intending to sacrifice the knight on g5, which is viable because the rook file will be opened up. After eliminating the pawn on e5, it will provide open source attacks along with the queen and bishop on this diagonal. After knight g7 and the bishop moving back, she suddenly sacrificed her knight on the g5 square. It is a brilliant and cunning sacrifice that even grandmasters might be shocked by. At this juncture, capturing the knight was the best move, which I actually did in the game, but after knight g5 happened, it created key weaknesses in the black king side along with the queen's infiltration on the h7 square. You have to protect that square by playing queen h6, after b6 followed by queen e4 happened in the game to attack the pawn on b7, I slid the rook, sacrificing the pawn, and she immediately responded with pawn to f4, it is a brave and cunning move. She is playing very authentically and brilliantly, she wants to expose the kingside diagonal on live camera. I mean she wants to expose the black king on live camera by the bishop. The rook on g1 is also there to attack with the rifle. You can see that white's king is located in the center of the board, didn't castle, and is still in the middle game. She is well protected, which unfolds Leela's strategies and genius. She is a brave, brilliant, and strong player. After my king moved, she captured the pawn, and we have bishop to b3, but you can see that she gets two connected passed pawns on the queen side. A couple of moves later, when the knight reaches the e4 square, it creates pressure on the d6 pawn and opens up the rook file. After the knight moves back and the queen goes to e6, the rook comes to a3 to attack the bishop. I played pawn to c4 casually, but it was a completely garbage move as white sacrificed the rook on the b3 square. I didn't accept that move. What a brilliant move. So after the capture happened on the board, because it eliminates the light square bishop, it is now unable to guard the dark square on the black king side. After she captured the pawn on e5, she tried to open up the diagonal for the bishop. I played rook c8 to create some counterplay, but she immediately shocked me by playing bishop g4, attacking both the queen and rook simultaneously on the board. After my knight blocked on f5, she captured the pawn on d5, making it clear that her dark square bishop might become active at any moment. The rook on g1 is poised to bombard my king's position completely. After I captured and recapture happened on the board, it provided an open diagonal and open file for my rook. However, she has a passed pawn, and the knight on g7 is pinned. She also has outside passed pawns on the queen side. After queen e4 was played to create some counterplay, she immediately pushed her pawn to h5, intending to capture the knight. With bravery and zero fear, I played queen b1 check. The king couldn't move there because the rook was standing there. After the bishop moved back, I captured the bishop on b2. After capture and recapture happened on the board, t7 arrived to attack the rook, and queen to h6 also arrived to attack the black king's position. So after a couple of moves, can you think about what white should play in this position now? White plays a cunning and brilliant move. You can pause the video and try to figure out that move, noticing that the rook and queen are simultaneously attacking the knight on g7, and that the queen is the only piece protecting the knight. Bishop takes b3 is the cunning move to check the king. Black cannot capture the bishop as it will lead to checkmate on the next move, so I played rook f7, and we have rook h1. White is now completely winning the game. After a couple of moves, she captured my rook and played a rook check. After a couple more moves, we have rook g1, queen e4 followed by rook h1, playing king g8 is not viable because of queen d5 check, forcing the king to move to f8, then rook to h8 will arrive to capture your rook, and the game will be completely over. Even now, the game is completely over. She promoted into a new queen and after giving some checks, she checkmated me. What a brilliant and astonishing game it was. I hope you enjoyed my game. If so, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye, see you.